Well, good evening to you, and welcome to this program of Walter Rodney Groundings. It's well, kind of a sad day for me because my mother-in-law has passed, and at the funeral, Miss Jacqueline Paris will be held tomorrow at 3 o'clock at the Buxton Church of God, but the body will be at the Jerrick's funeral parlor from 12:30, and then it will leave about 1:30 to go to the home, and then to the church for 2 o'clock. Tributes will be allowed before the service, which starts at 3. So between 2 and 3 o'clock, those who are desirous of giving tributes will be allowed to do so. So Mrs. Jacqueline Paris will be buried tomorrow, for those who are not aware. All right?
Deon, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the Working People's Alliance to express our deepest condolences to the bereaved family. From all of the reports that we've had over time is that Mrs. Paris has been a wonderful family person, supporting members of her family in every way that you can think of. She has been a wonderful wife, and I believe that her passing at this particular point in time is a tremendous loss to the entire family. And so that as a person who have had some moments of interaction with her, and as on behalf of the party, who she has given some support to over time, I want to express our deepest sympathies.
I'll extend that sympathy. Of course, she was a wonderful person to all of us. I mean, our children, our son-in-law, so on, sons-in-law, and so on. And everybody in the community who knew her and had interaction with her would be dearly missing her. She died from cancer.
Okay.
But so she went overseas to get medical attention. I don't want to cast blame, but the fact is that the doctors overseas are saying that some more care could have been given to extend her life in terms of radiation therapy, chemotherapy, and so on.
Okay.
That the administration of those were not adequate.
When you said some more care here in Guyana?
Yeah, in Guyana.
Okay.
In Guyana.
There's an indictment against our medical system.
Yeah. Well, it's sad, it's tragic, and I know we're all feeling the pains of the loss. So those who wake will be held this evening at her residence. We want to beat the curfew, so it's not going to be. And of course, we were expecting people to observe the COVID-19 situation.
Safety measures.
Yes. Sure. Okay, Brother Trotman, welcome back to Walter Rodney Groundings. We missed last week. Our guest actually cancelled at the very last moment, and so even though I got to the studio, I was not aware that person was not going to show.
Yeah, remember I had organized I was approached to make some time available to him, which I agreed to, and I had informed the person who had asked me to make the time available that it's on, and he in turn advised that the person had to be here for 5:30. It's a little disappointing, and so what it does is make you reluctant to commit the program to persons when in actual fact they're not serious about wanting to participate. They express an intention of participating, and then you go to and you make all of the arrangements, put all of the arrangements in place, and they don't. And so that you have to, for the future, is to look very carefully at how it is that you commit to having the program, having persons on the program who claim that they want to be there. In fact, they don't appear to be as serious as a request.
Well, I don't know what the circumstances are that would have caused prospective interviewee to not come. But we did hear a talk by Professor Lumumba, and I think it went down well. So, because one person called and asked us to replay, but there are issues that we want to discuss today, so we're going to have to possibly make another time to have that replay. All right. So tomorrow is the ruling in relation to the constitutional matter, GCOM, the recount, and all of that. Brother Trotty, as a commission on the Guyana Elections Commission, what are your thoughts on the way things have gone so far?
Well, you know, Deon, I'm a person who actually adhere to, abide by court rulings. And some have been made in the past, which I don't necessarily agree with. But as I said, you know, one has to observe and accept the rulings. What is happening here with this particular ruling is going to be delivered by this Chief Justice tomorrow at 11 a.m. And I think a lot of people are waiting with bated breath to hear what is it she's going to say. I think the ruling, the petition, I believe, challenges Order 60 that was used to do the recount exercise. And as I said, you know, there are views on both sides of the divide that Order 60, on the one hand, Order 60 is constitutional, on the other hand, Order 60 is not. And so the Chief Justice has it within her powers to make a ruling that will be acceptable by one side and not acceptable by the other side. So that I myself am waiting to hear what that she will say, and hopefully whatever she says will, as I've said previously, I don't believe that it will, whatever she says will find favor with everybody. But we are bound to, she must be given the chance to rule. Her understanding the law, I'm not a lawyer, I don't have a legal mind, and the issues that have been raised are issues that really should be decided by those with legal minds. It's not always that when you get these rulings that they, you know, conform to what people believe are acceptable. But we're in a situation here where it is that we have to wait and hear what the justice.
Right. I mean, the law is, I don't know how to describe it, but having, for me, you know, it's kind of, I don't know how to put it, but having gone through the process of the elections, hearing all of those matters and so on, if the law had allowed for an independent, fresh mind to be the arbiter in this entire process, I would have felt more comfortable, because a lot of the decisions that preceded now may impact, you know, one's consciousness in terms of what the ruling would be, because you've dealt with these matters. Somehow, does it affect you in any subjective way? Previous rulings that you would have made, how do you figure that?
Well, as I said before, you know, some rulings have been made which I have had some concerns about.
Yeah.
But the thing is that because I don't have a legal mind, I tend to not necessarily go with the flow, but I tend to take some of those rulings with a pinch of salt. However this one goes, because what this particular petition does challenges the results of the elections. The results of the use of information that was garnered during the recount exercise. That is one of the things that will be affected, and so that I believe that when that ruling is made, that's why I said that on the one hand, you will find persons who believe that the ruling should be one which says that the Order 60 was unconstitutional. And on the other side, there were people who were looking out for a rule which says that there's nothing that happened during the recount exercise that negates the results that was made.
But that I mean, what you've said there, I mean, that's negating the recount is not the position that we should be looking at. I mean, for me, it's whether the first position, whether it's constitutional.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So the recount exercise, whether it negates, as you were saying, I mean, negates what the results would have been, and that is not an issue for me.
No, but if it is, if you have a rule which says that the recount is the Order 6 is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
It means that remember the recount exercise was used to declare the president, the president, or the PPP as the dictators. So, if it is that they say that is unconstitutional, it opens.
Yeah, the entire.
Yeah, because you then have a situation where a government is in power which should not be. And you may very well have to. You may very well have to look at what the Esther Pereira petition did to the existing government, because when the petition was heard, I think a number of years had already been erased before the ruling was made, and so that the outcome of that was that there should be an election within a certain time frame, and that the government will do everything that is possible, that is required to legalize all of the decisions that were made during the time when it was in office. Because remember, a Pereira petition negated the result of the election. And so that you will have a situation, if Order 60 was said to be unconstitutional, you will have a similar situation here, where the result, what was used as a result of the use of Order 60 cannot now be accepted as being legitimate.
You know, I mean, going back a bit, because we don't want to trash anyone, but even before Order 60 came into being, advice was given from the parliamentary secretary that that exercise was not in keeping with what the Constitution says. He was of that mind at that time. They went through with it, and now we're before the court. What changes the position of?
Look, that's an important point that you raised. In the Esther Pereira ruling, one of the things that was considered by the person who today is chairman of the Elections Commission was that the political leaders cannot, not even in the best interests of the country, take decisions that are unconstitutional. And so, because remember Esther Pereira, one of the things that it turned on was the use of voting ID cards. Now, that decision to impose ID cards, voters' ID cards, were taken by the political parties acting together, but not aware that they were in violation of the Constitution. So they went ahead, they did what they had to do, and the present chair, who presided over the Esther Pereira matter, ruled at the time that it was unconstitutional. Now, when Order 60 was being considered, the Chief Parliamentary Council actually gave the same advice, that you can't go in that direction. But then GCOM, on its own, assumed a different posture. The thing is, can GCOM acting on the power with powers that they believe that they have, that the commissions believe that it has, impose a decision for a course of action which in itself may be unconstitutional? So that is the issue that we got to be confronted with. And so that that's why I said I'm waiting with bated breath. I know that a lot of people are, because they want to hear what the decision of the court will be in relation to this matter.
But politicians, GCOM, what differentiates the two? That if politicians are not allowed to go against what is constitutional and declare that people must have ID cards in order to vote, how does GCOM figure as an entity now making a similar decision?
Making a decision, because the GCOM decision is not one about using
not ID cards, but it's
a decision which could very well be held to be unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Because when the Chief Parliamentary Council gave his advice, GCOM then kind of circumnavigated around that and came up with a decision. I remember one Commissioner Corbyn, who was always very concerned about the legitimacy of GCOM's action, always very concerned about that. But you know, pressure was brought to bear. He said that, Chair, this matters. This is my position. This matters in your hands, and she made the ruling, obviously supported by the PPP commissioners. So that's where we are. So that the thing is that she could very well have participated in a decision that could be held to be unconstitutional.
I'm trying to figure, because you are not a legal mind. You're saying you're not. Here we have a person who sat as a judge in a matter relating to ID cards, saying that, you know, the decision by political parties and individuals, even though it's in the best interest of whatever they believe that it's in the best interest of the country and the population and so on, and that decision, once it's unconstitutional, that it should not be carried. That decision, you're saying, was made by the sitting chair of GCOM. We have a scenario where advice was given by the Chief Parliamentary Council in a similar situation. And the very legal mind that would have ruled in the ID card matter, you are suggesting that, well, you're saying that that person actually made the decision to carry forward this Order 60.
Yeah.
So how does that figure? What is the legal rationale, the basis for that kind of?
Well, the court has to, the court will determine that. The court will determine. That's why I said the thing is at a very interesting point. The court has to is to determine that, because initially this thing about the recount was something that was posited by was a deal that was brokered by, I think, Maya Motley, and was agreed to by the president at the time and the opposition leader. Then when we were discussing it, questions arose. Was this thing legal or not? So they went to the Chief Parliamentary Council. He made his opinion.
And Motley left?
No, well, she had already.
She had gone.
Yeah, she had already gone.
And came back.
Yeah. And so the thing is, how do you navigate around the advice of the Chief Parliamentary Council? And so that in attempting to navigate around it, you came up with what was believed was an approach that but had it's was rooted in the Constitution. We came up with that. I think one of the things that will be considered here was whether or not the approach that was taken that allowed for Order 60 was constitutional. It was constitutional, and so that we have to wait. It is true that as I said that the chair sitting as a judge in a superior actually made a ruling that said what took place there by what the politicians did was unconstitutional. So we have to wait.
Well, while we wait, we're still concerned because for a layman like me, also not a legal mind, and who would have followed what transpired in relation to post-elections 2020, we get a sense that our constitution is no longer a thing that we can really say, I mean, this is it. That it can be twisted and turned and tumbled and tossed in every which way.
Yeah. Depending on whose interest
is
is at stake at this particular point in time. Yeah. And in fact, Deon, what you're saying there brings me back to a point that I had raised the other day when I was on the program. There's a lot of talk about reforming the commission, the Elections Commission. And that talk also has to do with reorganizing the Secretariat to see it function in a certain way. All that is well and good. Wherever there's a need for reform, let the reform take place. But you can't have, once it's constitutional, but you can't talk about these measures when in actual fact there are a number of things within the Constitution that itself should be reviewed. I used the example the other day of a sitting president who, prior to being sworn in as president, had a number of charges laid against him. And that from the time that he was named as president, those matters were dismissed. Now, and not dismissed by the court, because it said that he has immunity. Now I want to see, while it says I welcome any review of GCOM's operations, and the reviews have to be legal and constitutional, I want to see a situation where a person who prior to becoming president has charges laid against him to answer those charges. It cannot be that those charges are removed entirely from his records simply because he has emerged as president. In Latin America, in a number of countries, even in other in the metropolitan countries, persons who are heads of government and are found to have done things that are inimical to the interests of the state and the people are answerable to charges. Much less persons who have been accused of crimes, of commission of crimes, prior to achieving office, having those charges set aside, simply because there's something in the Constitution which says that the person who becomes president has immunity over all things. I mean, it's ridiculous. So that this thing about the Constitution, you're right, it seems to be that whoever interest is being looked at a particular point in time, that we need to, if it is that those interests are under pressure as a result of what is in the Constitution, that we should reform the Constitution to allow for those things not to carry the same weight that they used to before. But we can't really be concerned about constitutional reforms when in actual fact we're not doing a holistic examination of the thing, and to ensure, because for as long as a person who's president has baggage before he came to office, I believe that the situation that we have to address is how it is that you dispose of that thing, and not by declaring immunity. That person must stand before the court, like how you said everybody else got to stand before the court. That person's president must stand before the court.
And the Attorney General is a major proponent of this.
Of this thing.
But he keeps flip-flopping all the time.
All the time.
In relation to matters that concern his clique and elite group as against other people whom he's pursuing right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because he seems to be saying, okay, one thing fits for one set of people, but when it comes to my, group, it doesn't fit at all.
And that is why I believe that the pursuit of a number of cases that you hear taken on, even the matters against the people,
Parliamentary secretaries.
The parliamentary secretaries, I mean, that's the behavior of the government was so indecent upon those persons.
Yeah.
And then the Attorney General goes to the court to argue against a position that he himself argued in another matter, in the matter of Keith Scott and Miss Winston Felix. He argued differently, and then he goes to the court, face a different type of situation, and tries to convince the court.
But I mean, the arrogance in the man after the decision, I'm appalled, that as a legal mind, he is, basically trying to denigrate
the Chief Justice.
The Chief Justice.
Yes, that's what he was trying to do. Denigrate the Chief Justice. So we have a situation which we have to be very, very concerned about. As I said before, I will welcome the review of the GCOM's operations and changes that are legally keeping with the legal requirements of it. But don't tell me that you come in with, because here it is, we have another matter before the court, the one which it is that the people who said that they had all of the evidence against Lowenfield and Company, as they call them, Lowenfield and Company, are now asking the court to say release the statements of polls so that we could access them to make a case against these people. Why? The thing is, you have some private persons who brought criminal conduct charges against Mr. Lowenfield and a number of other officials. They couldn't prove the case. So what happened? The Director of Public Prosecutions then assumed responsibility for presenting the case. They're now asking for evidence, which could only be used in an election petition, to be given to them so that they could make a case to continue the persecution of these persons who they had said originally that we have all of the evidence, and now they're asking, give us the thing so we could present it as evidence. I mean, the thing is so ridiculous.
But I mean, the statements of polls were asked for by the court to be secured. How I mean,
and what they did, they went to the registrar, who, because the court, the Chief Justice ordered that the registrar take possession of that and to keep it, to make sure that they see. They then went to her behind the backs of the court to say, give us this evidence, give us access to these things. The lady said, no, can't be done. I'm instructed by the court to take possession of this thing. And if it is that you want, the court got to instruct me otherwise. This is what we're dealing with. So they didn't even have the decency to say to the public that we're going to the registrar to access this evidence, this information. They went to the woman, and of course they probably tried to put political pressure on her. You have the Commissioner of Police, who's instructed by the Minister of Home Affairs, who's a high official in the PPP, high PPP official. He too was part of this thing. These people know the law. They got and they got legal people who could advise them. And they're just acting as if it is, that the law doesn't matter. So the court rules. You go to the court and say, look, Madam Chief Justice, please order that this thing be removed from the possession of GCOM and the CEO, because the law says that it should be the possession of me. Take it away and put it in the courts. Under the courts, the courts must assume responsibility. So the court acted in relation to the request, and then they ignored the court and went to the registrar and said, "Give me the thing. I want to see this thing. Give it to me." And the lady said, "No, I'm not doing that."
But the other thing is, because the parties involved are saying that this matter can reach the CCJ.
Mm-hmm.
Having witnessed what transpired after May 2020, how confident can anybody be, in decisions coming out of the CCJ?
Well, unless I think that what has to happen in these matters is that once there is a process that should be taken to certain levels, that those things should be followed. I understand the point that you're making, because after some of the rulings which the CCG handed down, a large percentage of people in this society had lost confidence in the ability of the CCG to preside over and to hand down decisions that they believe are free. But that doesn't negate the fact that if it is that because you don't have another court, you don't have another higher court that you can go to, so that you for the time you have to go to the CCJ for those final decisions. Once it is these matters could be heard at the level of the CCJ, that's where you got to go to. And so that I believe that while persons have very little, a large percentage of the populace have very little confidence in the CCJ, if matters can go there for a resolution, for a final resolution, perhaps that's what's up.
We're in a kind of a tight squeeze here, but constitutional reform is something that we keep talking about, and we seem to be locked in a situation that will forever be, simply because everyone seems to love the Constitution as it suits their purpose.
Yeah.
So we give lip service to the whole question of constitutional reform. Now the European delegation that came talked about making changes. You discussed that before. How are we going to get to that position where the proposed changes that they are suggesting are going to be implemented? If you can briefly go over what they suggested and how.
No, well, but they were speaking directly about the need to reform the Elections Commission.
But that reform cannot come about without having provisions made in the laws for it.
Yes, provisions have been made in the laws for it. But you see, but even the report that they made, it was flawed in a number of areas. Like the point I made the other day about their attitude to persons, to private residences being used as polling stations. That is a problem that has a history that they don't know anything about. Is that something that they heard? The way in which they wrote the report gave the impression that it's for the first time it occurred it occurred was at the 2020 elections. That is something that has been going on for the longest while. So that while it is true, while it may be true that there are needs for reform within the commission, those things have to take place not in a minuscule way, but as you consider the wider reform of the Constitution. For me, that's the way in which it has to be addressed. Because there are other issues. There are issues which that take place one place that could impact what is happening at the level of GCOM. And the thing is, the point that you make, we got to continue to focus on that, is that it seems to me that people only want to see a review of certain agencies, the laws that determine how those agencies are to function. They only want to see a review of those things because of their own interests. But they don't want to see the broader review of the Constitution, that it will allow,
for the national interest to be served.
To be served, yeah. They're not. They don't have that interest. They don't have that interest.
So, while we have our Constitution being tossed and turned and twisted and so on, the people who are essentially victims of these decisions are going to continue to suffer.
Yeah.
But outside of the political sphere, what can the people do to press for these changes? That,
people have to take actions in different ways. I don't want to say here what forms of action I believe that people will take, because the next thing you will hear is that Channel 9 is encouraging a certain kind of behavior on the streets. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to say it here. But people have to be concerned about how certain things are taking place, and we'll have to take action. There are different forms of actions that are open to people, and people must recall what forms of actions in the past, and if those forms of actions are necessary for today. And if it is that they believe that those forms of actions are necessary, that you could, you should take them. I won't be surprised. Look, one of the things that people do as protest action, I won't be surprised if in Guyana there's a kind of introduction of legal measures to prevent, like what's happening in the United States right now, because there's a groundswell because of how people reacted to George Floyd matter, and there was these massive protest actions. Now all over the place, you see state governments putting in place mechanisms to prevent these things from happening, and those actions are going to lead to further protest action, because people are already saying this is an attempt to trample on our fundamental rights, and that we must make sure that it doesn't happen. And so, we have to be concerned about this thing.
We should be having maybe about 10 minutes more or so. All right, but I've been reading. I don't know how much truth there is to what is being said, that there is a concerted attempt to have certain high-ranking officers in the Guyana police force, have criminal matters brought fictitiously against them, and that what I've been hearing, it's alleged that the DPP is being pressured, even though they sent these matters to the DPP, and she said that there was no evidence to support charges and so on, that she's being forced by the political agents to charge senior officers, black people, who are in line to become assistant commissioners and so on, because they don't want, they believe that the hierarchy of the police force is dominated by Afro-Guyanese. It's something that I read. I don't know how much truth there is to it. But in light of the fact that there are persecutions of Afro-Guyanese, I mean, across the country, then we have to look at that to see whether there is any truth and to fit it into the wider context of what has been taking place.
Yeah, you know, my position on criminal conduct, misconduct, is that if there's evidence that supports allegations of criminal misconduct, those persons to whom those allegations are made should be given the opportunity to have those charges proven against them. What is happening today in this society is something that we have to be concerned about. There might be some validity in the fact that these allegations against these persons have some substance. There might be some reason to believe that is so. But as you're saying, one cannot divorce what is happening in the force with what is happening in the wider society. The first thing is that there were challenges, there were certain recommendations made for the upward movement of certain persons within the force.
Some of them only joined the force a few months ago.
And there were legal challenges against some of those persons. It's interesting that for the first time in the history of the force that this action has actually taken place, that I know of. But we really have to be very concerned here that there is a really organized movement to ensure that senior functionaries in government, in the police force, who are African Guyanese, must be dealt with in a certain way. That they must be removed from the corridors of power. And we have to be very concerned that that may be what is taking place at this particular point in time. I don't know how much truth there is, because like you have heard about this matter, I don't know how much truth there is in that it's an orchestrated attempt to remove those persons, to have those persons vilified. But we have to be concerned, like in the cases of Lowenfield and other persons who have been charged at the level of the Elections Commission, that in case of Trevor Ben, who's been charged, I heard one of the charges against Trevor Ben is that he has sold land at ridiculously low prices. If you look at the charges insofar as Pradoville was concerned, that were leveled against the person who today occupies the seat of the presidency. Some of those charges also considered that the prices of those house lots were sold far below acceptable prices, market prices. Comparisons were made with those prices and other prices, and those prices were found to be ridiculous. And they weren't only limited to Pradoville, they were widespread. But as I said, we have to be concerned, because you get more and more I get the impression that this is persecution directed against a certain set of people in the society. Keep them in the place. That's the thing. Keep them in the place. They're not entitled to be in the corridors of power. Get rid of them. Once they're there, get rid of them at all costs. And you, even if you manufacture charges that cannot be proven, because we got to be concerned. We got to be concerned that charges are being leveled against persons.
And when they turn up,
in court, you know,
they have no.
So we are in a state here that says that black people have really got to consider what is in store for them, what the future is all about, and the government can't talk about going forward together when in actual fact you're doing your best to ensure that one set of people don't go forward at all, and the other large group of people go forward at the expense of the other people. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I believe that whatever course of action people will want to take is what is it they're entitled to. I don't want to be accused of giving people advice on what course of action. I know that people are mature enough, they're experienced enough to know what they're faced with, and they're going to use those experiences that they have at their disposal to act in the best interest.
But in the midst of, I mean, this may be my last question, in the midst of the silence of the people who have put themselves in position as the leaders of the people who are now subjects of all this, you know, massive, you know, what we can call discriminatory action and so on. In the absence of their presence, their voice, their leadership, where do the people go?
Deon, I believe, look, I'm one of those persons who believe that situations dictate what will take place. And I believe those situations, once this become dreadful, leaders will emerge out of that thing. And those who seek to put people under duress at this particular point in time, you've got to understand that whatever eventuates is what they've asked for. So that I'm a person who don't lose much sleep over the fact that the so-called leaders, so-called official leaders are inactive. Because I do believe that, you know, leaders are swept away. Leaders, when they become useless, are swept away. And we may very well find that this is the kind of situation.
So you say we got useless leaders now?
Well, I mean, the point that you made just now is that you're not seeing the political leaders who claim to be the natural representatives of the people doing anything. And so that if it is that people determine that those leaders are useless, they're going to treat new leadership will be spawned. These conditions, you know, spawn leaders.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Well, let's hope that, you know, that things do change. I know that for a fact that we've experienced. I mean, in the scenario where young, vibrant people, because of their vibrancy, they're simply being sidelined. I'm talking about the people like Sharma Solomon and Kisoon, and it seems as though this is a dispensation.
You got to say which Kisoon you're talking about. Is it Freddie Kisoon?
I'm not talking about sane people. You know, in this, where once you seem to be independent and willing to stand up and give voice to your own feelings and so on, and your positions that you cast aside, and put in the political wilderness by people who, in their own way, they have no vision and so on. And it's a sad thing that if you're going to grow a political movement, that you're not going to live forever, particularly when you're done 75, 88, so on. You got to have people coming forward. And if every effort is made to stamp them down when they are demonstrating what people really desire of the leaders, of the leadership, then, you know, we're not going to get anywhere. but that is how it is. I mean, it's not, I don't know whether you call it dictatorial style or military style leadership, but it's not proper leadership at all. Right? It's not proper leadership. And if it is that the people themselves have to, as you say, determine who their new leadership should be, springing out of a process where they themselves have, you know, decided it's too much.
Yeah.
And we have to do something for ourselves, you know, because those who are now comfortable in their cocoons, you know, and have isolated themselves, seem not to have any care for us, then I'm hopeful that it does happen. It's the best thing for us and for the country. And
Yeah, I got confidence in people, Deon. I got a lot of confidence in people, and I believe, you know, people talk to me every day. I am fortunate in that a lot of people believe that I am a good listener, and so they come to me with some of the problems that they are faced with, and they look for me to help find solutions. And I remember speaking to a couple of young persons the other day, and they were saying that, man, you know, our people really aren't giving us guidance or anything. I said, well, but you got to do, if it is that you're concerned enough about this, discuss it among yourselves and determine if, even in your small group, there aren't persons, a person or persons, who could stand up. I said the best thing is for all of you to stand up together. But you know, one of the things that we find very often, people look for other persons to stand
up for them.
Yeah, I said the best thing to do is to stand up together. But if it is that you want to look among yourselves, identify from among yourselves one or two persons who can be the leading voices within this group. But I said that any course of action that you want to take, it has to be determined and carried out by all of you together, and not only by one or two persons. I said that's the problem with leadership in this society, you know. People want to be seen as leaders insofar as they can give voice to opposition. But leaders got to go into trenches. You got to go into trenches and you got to give guidance to people who are in the trenches, and that's it how these things emerge. And a lot of people are looking for that.
Yeah, well, let's hope that things do change, because I mean the pressure out there is not easy, and in every facet of life you find that people are feeling squeezed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Before we go, we just have a few minutes more.
Mm-hmm.
GCOM, how is it that, well, local government elections are due? What has happened with GCOM and local government elections?
Well, there's been no proprietary work. In fairness to the secretariat, they have recommended certain things to the commission that have to be done in order to ensure that two by-elections that are required in two NDC areas are held. Unfortunately, what's happening, that to my mind, I get the impression that the People's Progressive Party does not want these things to go forward, and so that they're not agreeing to the recommendations put forward by the Secretariat. In fact, one commissioner, I think I said this before, one commissioner said in the commission that insofar as she didn't want to hear anything from the Secretariat in relation to these matters. So that I am not sure if they will allow for local government elections, which are due this year, to be held this year.
But we're getting, at one time, Darrell and then the year finale, elections will be held, but it will not be held with the same secretariat.
How it will be held?
It will be held at the end of the year, but it will not be held. Where are we exactly? I'm trying to figure out what will happen in the local government.
Let me tell you what is what the thinking is in relation to the People's Progressive Party. That Keith Lowenfield and all of the other senior officers who are black should be removed from the secretariat. That is their thinking. And a lot of this talk about, in fact, there was one commissioner who had gone publicly on the thing to say that he's carrying a motion to the commission to remove Lowenfield and a number of other persons from the commission. Lowenfield has been accused by some private individuals about the commission of crimes, which it is, they can't even provide the evidence now at this particular junction. This same Lowenfield was highly applauded for the conduct of two elections, local government elections, 2016 and 2018. Highly applauded. Up to now, they haven't been able to provide the proof that Lowenfield was involved in anything untoward in the 2020 elections. They're just allegations. A person must be given the opportunity to address those allegations. As I said before, one of the things that they're attempting to do in order to generate the evidence against Lowenfield and them is to get this to the statement of support. And if you go to the court every day, the magistrate is asking them, have you solved these statements and the thing? They can't answer. But you want to get rid of these people. You want the commission, because you know that the commission is divided, 3, 3, and 1. You're hoping that if it is that you come with a motion to the commission to remove those persons from office, that the chair will support the motion against them.
And the commission is 3-4.
Yeah. Well,
you're saying 3-3.
So that's the situation that we have before.
So we have a 3-4 commission.
Yeah, that's the situation.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the program, Brother Trotman.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Bringing to light some of the issues that are current in the political sphere of Guyana. To the people out there, I want to say have a good evening. It's been a pleasure being with you again on this Walter Rodney Groundings, and I look forward to being with you next week when we do have another program of Walter Rodney Groundings. I'm hopeful Brother Hogan will be back by next week.
By next week.
Okay. And do have a good night.
And thank you, Deon. And thank you, listeners.